Country with two separate notions of the most basic questions of justice cannot continue to muddle along forever. That's what author Kyle Schneider writes in AMGreatness this week, and man, is he right. I and many others have been saying this for over a year now as we observe the destruction of the American justice system when it pertains to certain protected groups and individuals. I hope I'm wrong, but we're already seeing a double standard in play at the beginning of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. She's Jeffrey Epstein's assistant accused of trafficking young girls for him and his extremely powerful buddies. Schneider explains the conclusion of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, in which the 18-year-old was found not guilty of murder or assault in the shootings of three rioters, I call them assailants, in the city of Kenosha, Wisconsin, reflects a widening gap in how Americans conceive of justice and self-defense. I would call it a chasm, a deep canyon. For those cheering Rittenhouse's exoneration, the case was a prototypical demonstration of rights and obligations of Republican citizenship. A lawfully armed Rittenhouse joined with neighbors in the absence of effective governance to protect lives and property by putting out fires, cleaning up damage, and offering medical assistance to the injured. When Rittenhouse was directly assaulted for engaging in that activity, he defended himself. He harmed no one who had not directly placed him in under reasonable fear for his life. In contrast, Rittenhouse's opponents have a radically different conception of self-defense, in which it is his assailants, Joseph Rosenbaum, the pedophile, Anthony Huber, and Antifa Gage Grosskreutz, whose behavior was not only justifiable but righteous and worthy of our celebration. This view is sometimes termed community self-defense, in which upholding the demands of an oppressed minority group and not preserving the rights of individuals is the basis of the most fundamental right. In this concept, what those of us who support Rittenhouse see as unlawful, violent, and destructive riots are rather collective actions against the structural violence and oppression of an inherently racist and unjust system. The right of self-defense is not rooted in the right of an individual to be free from harm, but a collective right of an oppressed community defined as a pre-approved minority identity group, which has exclusive right to express its political demands through violence if necessary. Therefore, many of his opponents insist even now on calling Mr. Rittenhouse a white supremacist, even though everyone involved in the incident was a white male. Rittenhouse is not being identified as a white supremacist because he's out of step with America's traditional understanding of rights. It's because he acted in accordance with those rights. It's that traditional American understanding of rights which is white supremacy to these people. Increasingly, it's not merely the anarcho-communist rioters of Antifa and BLM that see the world through this framework. Schneider goes on to identify that New York Attorney General Letitia James called Rittenhouse's acquittal a dark day that showed the system needs to be uprooted. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said the verdict sends a dangerous message about who and what values our justice system was designed to protect. Even President Joe Biden felt obligated to express anger and concern over the outcome of the trial. The prosecutors in the Rittenhouse case also acted in accordance with this new communal defense of oppression and identity hierarchy. Their star witness, Antifa Gage Grosskreutz, affiliated with the People's Revolution of Milwaukee, openly testified that he pointed his illegally concealed pistol at Rittenhouse first, showing that the true issue at bar was not the presence, use, or legality of firearms, but rather the cause for which they were employed. The prosecutor's incredulity that Rittenhouse felt himself permitted to put out fires started by other people was so absurd it generated its own meme. In his closing arguments, Prosecutor James Krause insisted Rittenhouse unlawfully defended himself because everybody takes a beating sometimes, implicitly invoking Martin Scorsese's epic film about a different kind of mob violence and explicitly condemning the notion that an individual has a right to hold his person inviolate from the will of the masses. Rittenhouse interfered with the communal will of the rioters and so could be justly punished, either on the spot or in the courts. When justice requires burning down the existing system, putting out fires is a moral crime. For any society, there is no question more fundamental than when and by whom force might justly be used. In the traditional American understanding, the right to use force was reserved for the defense of individual rights, either by the citizen himself or delegated to the government by social contract, but in accordance with the common good and the rule of law. This new principle of community defense reserves force as the legitimate right of the oppressed, the communal possession of certain identity groups executed on their behalf by a revolutionary vanguard, whether it's in the streets or from a Soros-backed leftist district attorney's office. As its opponents understand perfectly well, Schneider writes, if the individual does not have a right to self-defense, a system which generates its powers from delegated rights can't defend itself either. In this sense, it really wouldn't have mattered whether Kyle Rittenhouse was a 17-year-old young man or a sworn police officer. Only membership in an aggrieved class would justify his actions. Nor can a society built on individual rights forever tolerate self-defined communities holding themselves out as the sole possessors of justice without succumbing to anarchical violence. Go to AMGreatness.com, folks, and follow Mr. Schneider. This article is important for you to understand and read it fully. I've only presented a few bits of it here. It's a very important concept. And go buy more guns and ammo. Train to use your firearm and know the law. Know the law so you can protect yourself and your family and you don't get caught up in the court system, because that's as important as being able to carry your firearm to protect yourself. God bless you. God bless the United States of America, and may the enemies of America, like these communists, get their just desserts.